This week on the 77% Street Debate.
They try to incriminate African students because they feel you just less of them.
You want an apartment, you put it out there, and then they tell you, I don't want black.
Young African girls are being deceived by traffickers and later forced into sex work.
It is a nightmare which cannot be described in words, it can only be experienced.
The 77% is in Lefkosia, in the northern part of Cyprus. This island has seen its fair share of conflict, making former rulers to put up walls. And the one you see behind me was put up by the Venetians in the 16th century. But after a recent conflict in 1974, a different kind of wall divides this city into the Republic of Cyprus on the south and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, where we are currently. And aside Turkey, no other country recognizes this part of the island as a country. Now, over the last 12 years, this part of the island has seen an explosion in universities. Many students come here to get education because it's affordable and the universities are great. But there are challenges, and that is what this conversation is going to be about today. My name is Michael Oti, and we're going to delve right into the conversation. I'm going to start with you, Janice. On your way here to this discussion, you had a notification with a taxi driver. Tell us about this.
Okay, thank you. So we got a taxi from a taxi point, and then the driver, they didn't tell us the price, but as we've been hearing and we know, it's 80 TL for a trip once it's around Lefkosia. So we got at the drop-off point, and then he said to us, no, you guys have to pay 100 TL. We're two in the car. And we said no. So right away he said, I will call the police, because that is why they use to scare international students most especially.
And how frequent are experiences like this?
Maybe every day with almost everybody on these islands.
All right, so to give you some context, the population of the island is around 300,000, and a very significant part of it are mainly students. Now, I'm going to come to you, Brutus. Talk to me about some of the disadvantages and challenges that you encounter.
The issue of rent actually has been one of the key issues that many times I've encountered, most especially. I've been over a year to where I live, and then I haven't signed a contract.
I mean, hold on here and clarify this for us. Yeah. So you lived in the apartment for about a year.
Yeah.
And you haven't signed more than a year.
Yeah.
And you haven't signed a contract.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, to my utmost surprise, a few days ago, he met me on the roadside to tell me that there's an increment in the rent. So I asked him why. Why is it there's an increment? There's no notification prior notice. What are you doing on the house that making you to carry out the increment? And nothing was said to me. So actually, I feel like I've been exploited. I feel like marginalized in this part of the world.
I'm going to pose a general question to you both. You, Brutus and Janice, how is accommodation like for you as international students?
One of the strangest things I've seen in my life is here, and you will find a place that you like. So, and you reach out to the agent, and that person will text you and say, no African. That I have those messages, maybe hundreds of them in my phone.
Hold on, pause, stop right there. That's racism, right? That's what racism sounds like, right?
Definitely.
Okay. And what's your experience?
Yeah, exactly like she was saying. You want an apartment, you put it out there. You give interest into it, and then they tell you, I don't want black. I don't want black into this apartment.
Now, this is the experience of the students, but the problems begin even before they get here onto the island. And there's a peculiar system that some of the universities use to recruit students onto this island. Emmanuel Achiri is a PhD student, and he's been researching this and many of the other issues that affect many of the international students. The organization he represents is called VOICE, which is the Voices of International Students. And so, Emmanuel, explain to us the agent system used to recruit students.
I mean, basically, you could say it's a criminal system, to be honest. Criminal in the sense that they do mislead students. In fact, we did a study recently, and 50% of students, of the respondents, we interviewed 800 students from 67 different countries and from 16 different universities. 50% of these said they were misled by their agents. So the reality, or what they were told by their agents, is not what they found when they arrived here in the northern part of Cyprus. And the real question here is, these agents and their sub-agents work on behalf of the universities.
Okay,
And
we'll come
yes.
to that, but typically, what sort of misrepresentation would the agents give to the students?
In some extreme cases, right, they will tell the students, like, you're coming to Cyprus, not specifically the northern part of Cyprus or the Tyrian Sea, if you want to refer to it that way, that is not recognized. And of course, you want to ask a question, with technology, how come some students are not aware of this? And the question is something we have posed sometimes to agents, because we know those agents as well. Some of them are students, and they say, well, we contact parents, and so the parents don't have time to want to check for this information. They contact the parents arrange the flight tickets and everything with the agents. But of course, there's also different kinds of information or disinformation or misleading information, such as, well, if you come here, you can get jobs, you can get scholarships, living, the cost of living is not very high when compared to other parts of the world or European countries. But the reality is, when these students do come here, it is a completely different story. It is a nightmare which cannot be described in words. It can only be experienced.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you right there and then come back to you, Brutus. Yeah. When you were coming here as a student, did you expect that you were going to be able to do some student job?
Of course, I do expect that.
Were you able to do this?
No. I'm yet to realize that. These were some of the information given to me by my agent, but since I came, I haven't done anything like a part-time job or student job. So,
okay, all right. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm coming to you, Fezil. Fezil Ozum is a human rights lawyer. How often do student issues come to your table?
Yeah, we hear about such cases, especially with our partner institution, Voice Cyprus. And in my institution, Human Rights Platform, we mostly focus on human trafficking cases that international students, especially young African girls, are exposed to. So we see a lot of cases where young African girls are being deceived and recruited here by traffickers and later forced into sex work. And they are locked in private apartments most of the time. And we see that the student visa is being abused by the authorities. So they come here with a student visa, but they cannot attend to the universities because the traffickers lock them in private apartments. And basically they have no freedom of movement. And we see that the authorities do not monitor these students. So where are they? What are they doing? And why don't they go to the university at the first?
And that's just a logical question that I'm sure a lot of people would ask. If somebody is applied to study here and they've been granted a student visa, and for 4 or 5 months they haven't been to class, is there a system that monitors to ensure that these people are actually students?
No, actually the system can trace the students in terms of they know what is the percentage of passive students, passive meaning the students that don't attend to the universities. So they have this information, they have the percentages. But when we ask to the authorities, how are you going to monitor this? How would you know these students? What are they doing? Where are they now? And they have no answer to that.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
I have reliable information as well that some of the universities inflate the numbers of active students. So to make it seem as though the majority of the students are actually in classes.
What's the benefit in inflating the number of students that you have?
I mean, it's in terms of attractiveness. If you have more students and they are more active, then it means your university is probably doing something that is good. So it's a kind of like a selling point.
All right.
For
Okay.
prospective students.
So to be able to say that,
Also.
all right,
Yes.
to be able to say that you have 100,000 students or
yeah.
50,000 students, and it means more students are attending this university. I'll come to you, Janice, because you've had a personal experience, not just with the taxi driver I talked to us about earlier, but with a different situation involving another vehicle. Tell us about that.
It was this day I was coming to this same city center, and we're at the bus stop because that's what we do as students. And we kept standing, couldn't get a bus. This guy pulled over. He wasn't a taxi driver because he didn't have the sign, but usually they would want to take passengers. And when you're in a hurry, you got to go. So he picked us, we're two, a lady and I sat in the front, she was in the back. And then by the time we turned the curve, he touched my tie. So I'm like, what is it? He said, you hook up? I said, no. He said, you African hook up? I said, no, I'm not hook up. I just felt that day like I'm just something that somebody can just see on the street and say anything to. And I went home. But in cases like these, you don't know where to go. And even if you go, because of the things we've seen with other people, for me, I can always tell people I don't want to get into or trouble in a different man's land.
Is this story about sexual advances being made, is this a rare story?
It's not a rare story. It's something that we hear almost every day, and we see many severe forms of sexual exploitation faced by African girls, especially young girls, and we see a lot of when she's referring to I'm scared to go to the authorities, or I don't know how to reach out to the authorities. You are so right in that, because most women, most girls here, they don't know how to approach to the authorities, and even if they do, we witness a lot of discriminatory practices in the police. Even in the cases that I am representing the victim or the survivor, let's say, I go to the police station with them, and they do a lot of victim blaming and shaming throughout the whole process. So the first thing that we see as a response is that this person is lying because she wants to get money from the guy. It's very challenging, and the language is also a barrier for women to reach out to the authorities on their own. So they even fail to provide a decent translation services when you want to submit a complaint against a person here. So, and they are also reluctant to do effective investigation on sexual exploitation cases when it comes to African girls, basically.
And I mean, another very bizarre law that borders on health discrimination is that persons who live with HIV, once they are found out, cannot continue to be students. Explain to us how that works, Emmanuel.
I mean, basically, if you're living with HIV or, hepatitis, I think Fezile can correct me, is it B or C? Because C. And C, you would be deported. And it's not only the criminalization of persons living with HIV, but it's also how it is done. So you're treated like a criminal. You're invited to one of the hospitals, the public hospitals, once they have run your test and they realize that you're positive. You're not even told that you're positive. So, and you're arrested from there, you're taken to a cell, and you're deported. You don't even have access to your friends. Now, in some cases, your friends are told to bring your luggages, but we also have cases where they're kept in these cells and they're deported. And the funny thing is that the universities agree with this policy, which is absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, we are in the 21st century, and the fact that this is happening, I think, I really don't have the words to describe it.
I mean, clearly, Felice, these issues, especially with regards to preventing access to healthcare, this is a human right violation, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And most of the time we face these kind of cases on the ground as well. So, and also in the health system, there is also a huge language barrier as well. And people are not informed of their rights here. And of course, they don't know the current local legal framework here, which is very understandable. And they're not provided with clear information on their rights. And actually, the whole public system is so unreachable for international students in a way. It's almost impossible to access to their rights regularly. So it's in all different human rights areas, let's say. Not only health, or health is a part of it, but in all areas. And the politicians, basically, they don't care. So they always say students are the backbone of the economy. They also always say, oh, we pray for the students. In the pandemic, the numbers reduced, and we have seen the economic, the negative consequences to the society. So we need students. But on the other hand, when we mention about these problems, they just ignore it, and they try to reflect the issue on like it's a minority of the students, a marginal community that is experiencing this, and not the wider, student population here. They are in that mindset. Yeah.
And also, I mean, when she says that the students are the backbone of the economy, the northern part of Cyprus runs on the services sector, and the education sector is a very, very big part of it. But unfortunately, many of the students on their way into this part of the country have been harassed at the airports. Some have been accused of trafficking drugs. Tell us a bit about that, Emmanuel.
I mean, I think that the first thing to state is some students, all right, have been caught trafficking drugs into the northern part of Cyprus. That is a reality. But the policies that have been instituted as a result of these few students and a very little minority is very problematic, and it is. And I personally consider it as racial profiling. So, for example, African students who are coming into the Aegean airport now, all of their bags are searched. Everything that they bring is searched. In fact, even the food that they bring in is searched. We've even seen, policies, if you have a South Cyprus number, for example, in your phone, you're going to be deported. That is very arbitrary. What does that mean? But also
That is an actual rule.
it is a rule. It is a policy. But the one that is most mind-boggling, that the immigration officers would touch the palms of those coming in, and if your palms had creases or hard, they would deport you, claiming that, well, you're not coming as a student, you were probably working in some farm or some labor camp somewhere in Africa, so you're not coming here to study. And it's not just the fact that this is a rule. The fact is, when we did get this from the authorities, we're like, but are you people joking? There is a realization that students are the backbone of the economy. What happens to this community? Do you just ignore the challenges, the human rights, the everyday challenges that these students are facing? We are seeing a rise in the number of suicide cases. We are seeing a rise in depression levels within the student community. We are seeing a rise in criminal activity because people are trying to survive.
Exactly.
And all of these things, the authorities are really not doing anything. I'm not talking of having a conversation. They are not even willing to have a conversation on these things. It's just like, well, once you've come in, you've paid your fees, you've paid your rent, we've taken what we can take from you. Whatever happens to you, it's not our business. But remember, it's also by design, because many of these students who fall outside of the educational system have to work as irregular workers. They provide unskilled labor, and this is also beneficial to the economy. So just thinking that it's a lack of political will is problematic.
All right.
Yeah?
Now, I want us to talk about the role of the university in all of this, because these students, you also a student doing your PhD, you're all here because of the universities. So surely they have to take part of the blame, wouldn't you say?
I would say that the universities have to take the majority of the blame. If you claim you're actually institutions of higher learning, the process of education is not only, learning about your subject area, it's also experiencing a way of life. And you are conscious, and the universities are conscious of these challenges. It's not as though they are unaware of them. You're conscious of these challenges, but you take a policy of a laissez-faire policy, well, insofar as it doesn't affect the recruitment process of new students, it is not our concern. And so the universities do absolutely nothing. I think the universities are even perpetuating the system by not regulating the agents at all. In fact, even encouraging this trafficking that many of the agents are involved in. Because when you ask universities, regulate the agents, they say, well, it is not our job to regulate the agents. It is the job of the Ministry of Education. And the Ministry of Education says, well, it is the job of the universities. Irrespective of all of this, stupid politics, these are your students. They are registered in your universities. You have a fiduciary duty towards these students.
Exactly the point. And what responsibility do these universities bear? What is the position of the law in terms of ensuring that these universities do not screw these students over?
Well, basically, the law is absent in that regard. So, as Emmanuel highlighted, I agree with him. The major responsibility lies with the universities, but also there is a high responsibility on behalf of the executive bodies, so the ministries, because they often fail to monitor how these universities operate, and they're the ones giving the permission for new ones to be established. So we also have very big established institutionalized universities, but also very, very minor and very last-minute pop-up universities that we don't even know their names. Who gives them the confirmation for establishment is the ministries. But the universities only care about their profit, basically, their money at the moment. So the institutions, the politics has to stop them, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just to add on what my brother just said, right? 100% the universities should take responsibility of whatever happened to student negatively here. So the universities should stand on behalf of the students. We make them to have profits. We make them to be recognized. So if they did not care for us, I believe it's detriment on their part.
And while we wait for the universities to act, you are into student politics. Yeah. On your level, what are you doing to ensure that African students, their experience of African students is improved?
Actually, currently, we just got together as international Liberian students. So we went at the university, most especially the Near East, and they told us before they can hear us or they can address any of our concerns, we should be a registered association.
It's all very interesting, and also I also need to point out that we have tried to reach out to some of the universities here in the northern part of Cyprus, and we have not been successful. We have sent emails, we have told them about the problems that international students are facing, and I've asked them to tell us what their processes are, try to offer some explanation, but we have not been very successful in that sense. And one other person who is having a really difficult task is you, Felice. You are fighting against a system that, as you say, is stuck in time. Are you confident that you're going to be able to win this battle?
Yeah, actually, as civil society organizations, we are getting more stronger. Also, thanks to you for raising this voice today, because I see that many people were just ignoring the stories of international students here for so long. But I believe that it's gonna change. And as more people speak, like courageous people, I think we will be successful in that struggle, because we are right.
And I also want you to give some advice to young students, especially girls.
Yeah, I would like to tell everyone to be careful and do a really good research before they're being brought here, and to get in contact with their universities, not to trust on personal agencies, especially the people that they meet online, especially through Instagram, for instance. We've seen many fake profiles deceiving young girls, so they need to get in contact with the institutions rather than relying on a person that they don't know of. And if they're in trouble, they need to actually access us or the police. So I would advise them to contact the Human Rights Platform. We have a hotline as well, so they can access to us, and we will provide legal aid. We would be there.
All right, great. Now, Janice, would you recommend Northern Cyprus to people who want to come here and study?
I would say no, because of some of the issues that are faced here, but yes, for the level of education that we obtaining here. I want to add up to what Felice was saying. A lot of times people just get people from the internet and just pack their bags and come. Sometimes I'm baffled in a way that in this internet age, somebody cannot just research where you're going to. Even if your parents were the one that were contacted, every international student that enters North Cyprus has an internet phone. We want to blame the agents, which they take a larger portion of the deceit. But if you're a student, it says something different about you. So if your mom tells you that, okay, I want you to go to Cyprus to school, and just say, okay, I'm happy, pack your bags and start to come, I have a problem with you. So I think students that want to come here, yes, it's a good place with some of the best universities around, but do your research. If you don't have any form of support, I can tell anybody, do not come to Northern Cyprus.
Yeah, so Janice has summarized it very, very well. Northern Cyprus will continue to be a hub for further education. There are some really great universities here, but there are others that are a little suspect. So as she said, do your research before you come. And also be aware that Northern Cyprus is different from the Republic of Cyprus. Know where you're going. That's how we end today's debate. Tell us what you think about this topic, and also share with us if there are other topics that you'd like for us to cover. I am Michael Oti. Thanks for watching.